Hello YouTube, Dave here again. I hope you all had a happy and safe Halloween. And I just want to take advantage of the opportunity around this time of year to talk about some of my favorite horror-related things. Specifically, I want to talk about one of my all-time favorite writers, and that is H.P. Lovecraft and his creation, Cthulhu and the Cthulhu mythos as it's known. I've got a few different things in my collection that I kind of wanted to show off and talk briefly about in this video. Some things are, fitting, and some things are just kind of weird or unusual, but kind of cool because it is Cthulhu. So I just kind of want to start off with something a little more lighthearted as far as my collection goes. So I've got here is the My Little Cthulhu by John Kovalik, and this is a vinyl figure, and it's got here from the producers of the Tickle Me Dagon and Strawberry Shub Nagroth. Little Cthulhu there. The rainbow behind it's pretty cool, and here it says based on the hit Saturday morning cartoon as seen on W. Fatagan Carcosa, and of course just the adorable big-headed Cthulhu on a cloud, very reminiscent of the Care Bear thing, which is pretty cool. So I got a couple of these, but this is the standard one. I also have what's called the Angry Cthulhu, which is black colored with red eyes, and kind of got like the angry eyes going on, but just wanted to show this off because I always thought that this thing was pretty cool, although, there we go. It's kind of hard to get out of there, so that's what it looks like. And the hands is a little bit of, I guess not too much articulation or anything, but it is pretty cool, and with it comes a couple of humans there. So we got a cultist and just a regular human. Popped out there, and of course these things actually just fit right into the Cthulhu's hands, which are pretty cool. So just a little collector's thing. I thought I got it just because, again, knowing what the Cthulhu is, knowing the stories, and the tone of them, just seeing something so adorable as a kind of a spoof, I guess, on the whole thing. Just really cool. Really like it. Unfortunately, it's got a few marks on it there. I think our daughter kind of got near it there a few years back, but that's okay. Just one of the things I wanted to show off. Got a couple of other things here as well, kind of along those same lines, so I'll just adjust the camera up. Oh. And these are the plush, I guess they were called Chibi Cthulhus, so they're kind of a cutesy looking plush thing. Again, very reminiscent of the Care Bears. Got the wings, and got a little heart on his stomach. Then there's the Halloween themed one, which is fitting. It's got a pumpkin and a witch's hat. And then the last one that I picked up was the zombie Cthulhu, which just has a brain on his stomach and some blood coming out there. Again, just thought it was a really cool thing to have. It's kind of messed up considering that Cthulhu is this horrific monstrosity, but again, just really cool little things that I picked up. And that's kind of it for the more cutesy stuff that I wanted to show off in this, but there's some other forms of media that Cthulhu has made appearances in. One of the things that I've actually got here is the Call of Cthulhu movie. Now, this isn't like a big Hollywood production or anything, but it was a really cool movie. It's black and white, and it's done in the silent movie style, so there's no voiceover or anything. It just kind of tells the story, and it actually does a really effective job. So if you've read the story and you're familiar with it and you go and watch the movie, it actually really you can really tell what's going on. Like, even some of the lines that are being said, you can kind of understand if you've read the story. So this was pretty cool. It came out back in 2000, if I can get it to focus there, in 2005 is when this came out. So I've had this for quite a while. It was done by the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society, and just a really, really awesome adaptation of the story, which the movie would be a very difficult thing to do, I think, just based off the story, but they actually did a fantastic job. So if you get a chance to see this, highly recommend it. Hey, there's also some card games that have come out featuring H.P. Lovecraft's work. One of the earlier ones is called Mythos. So I'll just show this here. This is one of the, I guess, the starter set type of thing. And what it is you take on the role of an investigator. So you've got your investigator cards here. They each have their own different stats. So they got beginning, sanity, education, hand size, what your minimum maximum can be, which is really cool. And the whole idea, there are two different ones here. So the whole idea is that you go through and you play your cards, some of which can drain your sanity, some of which, like for this one here, the red hook, you lose 1 sanity if you were to play that card, but you do it in order to complete quests. So you've got monster cards, which you can actually attack with, and they can damage your character, as well as other things there. So it's a pretty neat little game, and the objective is to actually complete these adventures. And if you complete so many, worth a certain number of victory points, and I want to say it was 20 victory points, or 20 or 21. If you're able to get that, then you sort of win the game. So you can defeat your opponent by attacking with monsters or characters, but you can also win by just completing quests and earning the victory points, which is pretty cool. So the way that you do it is you just kind of read through. So in this one here, it's 2 cities and a tale. So it says the journey began in a Kingsport location. So you would just kind of look through. For example, here you've got locations. Now this one's an Arkham location, so it wouldn't count for that. But that's one of the things that you would kind of look for. So you would have to, at some point, have played a location card that is from, in this case, it would be from Kingsport rather than Arkham. So you go through, look for one of those, and you can search through your active cards as well as your graveyard, so they don't all have to be in play at the time, which is pretty cool. From there, the train, so anything that's done in capital letters are the cards that you require. So from there, the train allowed passage to a New York location. So you have a Kingsport one, you need a train card, which is a type of card in here as well. And then New York location, where Mrs. Sonia Lovecraft, who's a specific character, introduced you to the famous author. So you just need a ally card, which I think I've got one relatively handy here, hopefully. Okay. So you would have, like, up here somewhere, it would probably say author in it. Okay, the evening was spent listening to his fascinating monster story, so you just need to play any monster card, which I showed one off earlier here. There we go, so just any monster will do. Listen to his fascinating monster stories, how can you make it all up? So it's pretty cool. You get regain sanity for completing quests, you get the victory points, and it's just a really, really cool game. Didn't get to play it as much as I would have liked, but a friend of mine sold me his collection of cards, which is really sweet. So one of these days I'd like to actually maybe have a few games. Have to read up on the rules again because it's been quite a few years since we've played. But that's one of the other things that I have in my collection, so just a cool card game. There was a Call of Cthulhu card game that was released. I have one of the starter decks for it, but I've never actually opened it. I think it's still sealed, so I'll probably just leave it that way. And this is just the other deck, so it was designed for, the starter set was designed for 2 players. Alright, moving on from card games, movies. Obviously, one of the major things about the Cthulhu mythos would be the stories. So I've got quite a few different collections of books that with Lovecraft's works were mainly all short stories. So they weren't like big long novel things like you would have today. A lot of them appeared in like pulp magazines. He was a writer back in the early 1900s, so it wasn't quite the same format that we have today, but there's quite a few collections, and one of my absolute favorite collections would be the Necronomicon, which I picked up, and as you can tell, it's a pretty hefty book. It's got some maps and stuff in the back, which is pretty cool. But I think it's, over 870 pages. So this is a huge collection of stories. I don't think it's quite all of them, and I think some of the ones that are in this, because it's been a while since I've actually gone through and read through it. But I think a lot of the stories in here are also written by others as well. Or at least there may be some other things in here that were done by other authors. But let's just have a look here. I may be wrong. I think this may be... this may be all Lovecraft instead, so I may be wrong on that one. I do have a collection that has Lovecraft as well as other authors, but actually I think this one is all H.P. Lovecraft, which is really cool. So picked this up quite a few years ago. Read most of the stories in it already, so I haven't really read directly from it, but for something like this I just had to end up picking it up. Right, another collection here. So this is sort of a more modern collection. So this is the Call of Cthulhu and Other Mythos Tales. And this actually here might be one of the ones. Let's just have a look. This was put out by IDW. And it's just basically a collection of the stories as well. And there are a few, if I can find one here, there are a few pieces of artwork scattered throughout. Picked this up quite a while ago. I can't even remember how much I paid for it, but I think it was, I want to say it was $16.99 US. But anyway, just another cool collection of stories, and I had to get this one again, the Call of Cthulhu. Even though I have a lot of these stories already, just have to have it. Just really sweet looking cover as well. So. And another one of my actual favorite pieces of my collection here is The Art of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu Mythos. So this is an art book. We'll just adjust the camera down here. I'll just kind of flip through it as we go. So this is an art book. I think a lot of this was inspired by the modern card game. So Fantasy Flight Games, which I think did the card game, I have credit for quite a few of these pieces of art. But it's just a really awesome book. Really a lot of great artwork in here. I think if I were to run any sort of Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, which I'll touch on here in a little bit, I would probably try to use some of this this artwork for visual aids. So again, it's just really some fantastic stuff in here. Let's see if I can find, because they're broken down into different categories. Let's see if I can find just a bunch of artwork of Cthulhu here. Okay, so we got a few different things here for the mythos itself. Innsmouth, Shoggoth, Cthulhu, just again some really great Cthulhu. Which actually this was from the Chaosium role-playing game, so just again really great artwork in here. Love this book. Just really pretty sweet altogether. If you have a chance to pick it up, I do highly recommend it. Again, I can't remember what the price was because it wasn't printed on the cover. I've had this for probably almost a decade now, actually. But really awesome buy. Now, of course, my channel does focus largely on role-playing games, so I do have the Call of Cthulhu. This is the D20 role-playing game. It was kind of work between Monty Cook and Chaosium was part of the development process for this as well. But this is the D20 version. So there's other versions of the Call of Cthulhu out there which are more percentile based, and they were all put out directly by Chaosium, but this was put out during the 3rd edition of D&D, and I want to say it came out in 2002. I want to say, yeah, 2002. See if I can get it. There we go. First printing, March 2002. So the role-playing game, you basically take on the role of an investigator, and it is set in either the 20s, which is kind of the Lovecraftian era, or the modern day, which was like the year 2000 for this. As you can see, the character sheet is very reminiscent of the 3rd edition D&D sheet. You didn't have classes like you do in Dungeons and Dragons. What you had were either offensive or defensive investigators. So if you were offensive, you had like the good base attack bonus progression. You had, I think it was a good fortitude saving throw, and you had access to certain skills. If you were defensive, I think you had like either reflex or will was your good saving throw. Your base attack wasn't really as great, and I think you had more. Skills, if I recall correctly. I may be wrong. It's like I said, it's been a while since I looked through this as well. And I can certainly do a more thorough review of it in the future. I just kind of wanted to touch on it a little bit for the purposes of just putting out a video around Halloween time. But this is a great horror role-playing game. So if you're sort of interested in running something horror-themed, then this is a great way to do it. And if you're more familiar with Dungeons and Dragons and perhaps other forms of role-playing games out there, then this would be a great version of it to pick up, just because it's got sort of the familiar mechanics in it. It's definitely not an easy game to progress through. It's very easy for your characters to die or go insane, and if their sanity drops too low, then they're effectively gone and you won't be able to play them anymore. This is really great book, and I've played in a couple of Call of Cthulhu games. It's one of those things that you really kind of have to have the right group for. If you're not in the mood to play something like this, it can be kind of difficult to stay focused on it, or to kind of get swallowed up by the horror themes. But had a really great time playing through this, and would actually really like to give it a go at some point in the near future. Probably not a long-term campaign, but maybe even just a couple of little scenarios or something like that. Now, with this, so this was the book put out by Wizards of the Coast. There were some supplements put out that supported the D20 Call of Cthulhu game. There were some regional source books, Innsmouth, Dunwich, I want to say Kingsport, and Arkham. They were ones, those books were actually dual statted, so you could use them for either the Chaosium version or the D20 version. I have all of them except for Innsmouth, which really kind of sucks because Innsmouth is one of my favorite locations. The Shadow over Innsmouth was one of the first Lovecraft stories I actually read, so that's one I'm still kind of hoping to get at some point in the near future. But I have the other ones there. And again, they work for either. They're all set more or less in the Lovecraftian era, which is the 1920s. But they also put out the Call of Cthulhu D20 system campaign, Nocturnum. And this was put out by Fantasy Flight with Chaosium, officially licensed for the D20 system. And this is a full-fledged campaign that takes the characters through quite a bit, actually. It's a really involved story. I'm not going to go into detail on it here. Again, I might do a full review for it at some point. But it's actually a really cool campaign involving, conspiracy, and obviously supernatural, the mythos, and there's opportunities for the characters to be captured and put into insane asylums and having to escape, and you get to visit quite a few different locations, and it's a really far-reaching campaign. I would love to maybe at some point go through and run the whole thing, but this is one of those things where, again, the D20 Cthulhu, or the Cthulhu role-playing game in general, could be really difficult to play long-term, just because it is so easy for your characters to die or to go irreversibly insane, that it can be kind of difficult to get the characters through all the way through the first chapter to the final one. But the opening one is actually really cool. It starts with the player characters just traveling through a snowstorm. They end up hitting a Native American in their vehicle, which destroys the vehicle and forces them to have to stay in a nearby hotel, where they start to learn about some strange attacks and ongoings in the nearby area. and where they first learn about this evil corporation that's kind of pulling the strings throughout the whole entirety of the campaign. The corporation Temco, I think, was the name of them. And you kind of get an idea that there's something strange going on. And it's, like I said, we only got to play through the first couple of adventures, I think, before the game unfortunately kind of fell apart. But who knows, maybe one of these days I'll get a chance to run this for the right group. But anyway, this is, like I said, a quick video I wanted to put out for this time of year. Hopefully I'll be able to upload it while it's still October 31st to have it in time for Halloween, but if not, then it could be for a good post-Halloween video. But I just wanted to show off some of the Cthulhu items that I have in my collection. There's certainly more than this that I have, but I didn't really want to go through and show everything all at once. If you're interested in the D20 role-playing game and want to learn more about it, just let me know in the comments below, and I can certainly do a full review of that, as well as I could certainly at some point do a complete review of Nocturnum. If you want me to go over some of the other things that I have in my collection, let me know that as well. And anyway, just hope you enjoyed the video, and like I said, I hope everybody had a safe and happy Halloween.